us here in the studio, and we're very happy to have you here. So let's begin with the CSIR. Of course, we know of the CSIR. We've seen the CSIR do many things since we were growing up, but there are still people who may not know what the CSIR is and what you actually do. So let's start from there.
Thank you very much. And CSIR stands for the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. It was established by an act of parliament, so it is a wholly government institution that is involved in research and development. And it is the foremost research institution in Ghana. It was established in its current form by an NLC decree in 1968. And currently, it has been re-established by an act of parliament, Act 521, which gives us a mandate even to develop and apply innovative research technologies that would improve the socioeconomic development of the country. So we are made up of 13 different institutions dotted across the whole of the country. So our footprints moves from Axim to Zabzugu. Everywhere there is either a CSIR technology that has been deployed or a technology that is being used, from agriculture to zeolites, that is materials for pollution remediation and all sort of technologies that have been developed. So over the years, we have worked extensively to improve the lifestyle. But like you said, we still have a lot more to do to make our impact felt within the Ghanaian community, who have generously supported CSR over the years.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are some of the major things that, I mean, off the top of your head, you can think of, that the CSIR has done, for our country? Of course, among the many things that you've done.
So, as part of our mandate, we are supposed to look at areas of agriculture, environment, industry, and then also some aspect of public health. So I'll touch on a few of these areas and what we have done in order to impact on the Ghanaian economy. So if you look at agriculture, a lot of the food that we produce, the seed production, the variety generation, the rice, the maize, the cowpea, most of the staple. This morning I heard you having a conversation about the school feeding program.
Yes.
And if you look at how we have developed varieties that would ensure that even the protein content in normal cereals are improved, that improves the nutritional quality of food. All this research has been done by CSIR and has been deployed to farmers who have cultivated it and are feeding the general populace. If you come to environment, we have worked extensively in developing tree species which were previously growing naturally. We found ways of cultivating the tree species to ensure that our environment is greener. So when we're planting trees and greening Ghana, the bedrock is that the research that went into developing how to cultivate this tree species and deploy it in order to make sure that Ghana is green, a lot of the research was done at the CSIR. If you look at industry, from raw materials through process, even to waste, there are footprints of CSIR, and it goes through waste treatment technologies that are using anaerobic digester systems to reduce pathogen levels in liquid waste, incinerators that have been deployed in order to manage solid municipal and industrial waste, and hospital hazardous waste as also. We've developed technologies for dealing with such, which prevents reinfection. And in the heart of the COVID, CSIR was very much into finding ways of testing and making sure that we monitor the mutation of the gene of the virus and we have it under control. So there are a lot of areas that CSIR has been deeply involved. But because previously most of our mandate was for public good, we develop the technologies, we pass it on to private individuals who then market it. So they come in brand forms in the name of the private institutions without the CSIR technology being felt. So now we want to change the narrative and be partners. We want to change the narrative and make CSIR felt amongst the general populace so that they would truly know that indeed we are there for them.
Well, it's like, I mean, we're already feeling the impact of CSIR, just that it's like you're working behind the scenes and we are feeling the impact without even knowing that it's the CSIR which is doing all of that. And that's brilliant stuff. But of course, like you said, it's important that some of the issues come to the fore.
Absolutely.
So that people know exactly what the CSIR is doing for them. So, I mean, you do a lot of research, a lot of, projects which are research-based and all of that. And there is funding involved.
Absolutely.
It's very critical.
Very critical.
It's very crucial. How does the CSIR fund its research?
So the CSR, the funding that supports CSR research is I would term it in three folds. First, critical is government funding. Government has been benevolent to us over the years and have paid our salaries. So salaries of CSR staff are supported. The emoluments are supported by government and the taxpayer.
Right.
Then we also write proposals to international donor-funded organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Global Challenge Research Foundation. There are several other foundations that try to call for proposals that would help in addressing the Sustainable Development Goals that has been agreed on by the Committee of Nations. So we write such proposals, and then when we win grants that come from them, we use it to implement the research hypothesis that we have thought of. Then the last, which is also not the least, is that our current mandate gives us the opportunity to commercialize some of our research products and services. So we also commercialize some of our research. We do consultancy services, and then when we develop technologies, we find ways of passing it on to the private sector and getting some small fees from it, which would help us to run the organization smoothly.
But every project that you do will definitely have to be funded, right? So, I mean, what criteria is used to select projects or, research for funding?
Thank you very much. So for a research to be funded, the first thing is that it must be demand-driven. So we've moved away from the time when scientists sit in their corner, fantasize nice ideas, and they think about doing it in the lab. And we've gone to the place where before you even design a research concept, you need to sit down with a committee that would benefit it. Look at what their needs are. What is it that would help them? What innovation would help them address the drudgery, would help them address the challenges that they have with the process that they have? What challenges, what do we have to do in order to address issues of global and climate change? So we look at all those things, and then we select ideas that are demand-driven, meaning that once our findings come, our outputs come to the market, there are already off-takers who will take it up, and then we'll see the impact of it right away on the ground. That is one. And then also we look at the broader Sustainable Development Goals, because these are goals that we have all agreed that we need to achieve by the year 2030. So we look at how is it going to measure in terms of contributing to the impact that the Sustainable Development Goals is seeking to have. So these are the broad areas that we look at before projects are funded.
All right. So there is an endowment fund that has been set up, for or by the CSIR. Can you tell us about that?
Good. So over the years, the three funding sources that I have itemized has been dwindling and dwindling very fast. And if you look at the donor-funded projects, the chances of you winning a grant is just about 5%, even for the most proficient proposal writer. So for a career scientist, it means that you put in 100 proposals, the chances of winning is that 5 of them is going to win. So this has been a challenge, and it's getting even more keener because you are competing with the whole world for a limited amount of resource. So it has come to fore that we need to find ways of having more sustainable funding sources that can support early mid-career research scientists who have not yet developed the niche of, writing very hard cut-edge proposals, but needs to be groomed in order to get to the place where they can compete with the big boys on the international market. But How do we go about it? There has to be some amount of funding that is available for them. So we spend a lot of money to train them. We train them in some of the ivory tower universities in Ghana and abroad. And many times they come to their country, and when they have challenges with refusals in terms of proposals, some of them want to give up and leave shores and go back to the countries where they were trained.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of a brain drain there. We need to find ways by which the brains that we have, the taxpayers have all contributed in developing, serve the nation. So this fund is supposed to create a certain kind of funding opportunities that are available for mid-career, early career research scientists to kind of test some of their ideas, the wonderful ideas. You agree with me that when you're younger, your ideas are more lofty and beautiful.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait for them to age with the ideas before we try to harness them. Once they are young, we need to find ways by which we can harness these ideas to bring socioeconomic development even into the country. So this fund is going to create that opportunity. And then also there is capacity building. We need to build the capacity of our scientists in critical areas that are not necessarily available to them in their core career development paths, but which they need in order to make them sharpshooters and better researchers. So this fund will give us an opportunity to build such capacity within the CSIR and also within the research community, so that we would be able to develop innovative technologies that would have greater impact amongst the Ghanaian society.
Brilliant stuff. So talking about how it's financed, of course, I was mentioned earlier that the staff have agreed to support with 1% of their salary, right? Is that the only way the endowment fund is going to be financed?
No, not, but it was a critical point.
And how did the staff even arrive, at that conclusion or resolution that, okay, let's put 1% of our salaries into this fund?
Like the saying, charity begins at home. And we needed to prove to would-be donors that the commitment is from within. It's a bottom-up approach. So it means that when you have the buy-in of the entirety of the staff of CSIR, it also shows the commitment of the people to ensure that any limited funds that come to the kitty will be put to judicious use. So the staff benevolently offered to give 1% of their basic salary to support for a period, to support the creation of the endowment fund. And the endowment fund in its nature, it is not necessarily the inflows of the funds that are used for the research, but the inflows goes into a kitty, into a potty, and then that is invested, and the proceeds that comes from it, the dividends, is what is used to conduct the research. So we are soliciting funds from private sector organizations and individuals, farmers, the numerous clients and people that we have worked with that have impacted, or our technologies have impacted on their businesses. We are calling on them that this is the time for them to look back at CSIR and feed the hands that fed them some time past.
Yeah, and how do they do that? Anyone listening that believe, like I do, that this is a great initiative, let's support, let's contribute. How will they do that?
So we have put in place systems and policies that would ensure that without limitation, anyone would be able to contribute. So for instance, there is a voice prompt, or let's say, what's that called?
Short code?
Short code.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Short
much.
code.
*887*2#. You follow the prompt, or let me say it again, *887*2#. For all networks. So you follow the prompt, and any single or any amount that you want to donate, you would be able to follow through. We have a mobile money number also that is available. And then we have, bank accounts that have been made available, which you can easily access the accounts and then make handsome donations towards it. And it will be well acknowledged.
So you just dial the star code.
*887*2#.
I said star code there. Short code.
Short code.
So you just dial the short code *887*2#. And then you're able to, follow the prompts, and then you can make your donation. So who is responsible for managing the endowment fund?
So in order to ensure transparency, we are
Yes.
not, and to give confidence to all donors, and we are expecting, let me say, an amount of about 300 million Ghana cedis into this fund
Right.
that would be invested and the dividends used for research. We're expecting a lot of our private partners to help us to be able to achieve that. So we need to involve them in the management of it. So we are developing a policy which is at the draft stage, and the policy involves a board of trustees that involve the private sector, civil society, and also members of the CSIR,
Right.
who would be responsible for the management of it, and also developing concepts for or areas where research would have to be targeted in order to make sure that our impact is really felt. And then all the other processes that is required to ensure that the fund is judicially managed within the laws of Ghana. So this board of trustees will be solely responsible for
Right.
the management.
And earlier you talked about, limited resources and a lot of research to be done by a lot of people, and sometimes they're not able to get the funds and all of that. So I'm curious to know how the funds will be allocated. I mean, are there any specific focus or area of priority that the fund will be focusing on funding researchers who want to do work in those areas? How is it all going to play out?
So because we are looking at impact, impact that drives socioeconomic development within the society.
Yeah.
The main flag point that we'll be looking at is how does any proposal address the sustainable development goals? So for instance, are we going to reduce hunger? So there's issue with school feeding programs. It's because perhaps the meals that they are serving is not rich in protein. Could we develop meals or program varieties of food that are protein fortified that would ensure that our children who eat this food would have the necessary balanced diet in order to be able to concentrate and learn and contribute to our development? We're looking at how can we reduce poverty? Are there interventions that we can put in place in order to create wealth amongst the underserved communities,
Right.
where those who are involved in farming in the times when there is a lean season? Are there other areas that they can deploy in order to be able to make sure that they channel their energies to generate wealth? So we'll be looking at touching almost all the 17 development goals that
Right.
have been stipulated.
Right. And about sustainability, and growth of the fund, apart from the 1% and, asking for people to also be a part of it, donate to it, how is the CSIR planning to ensure sustainability of the fund?
So apart from the private donation and also the donation that is coming from staff individually,
Yeah.
the kind of work, the consultancies that we do in CSIR, the commercialization that we do in CSIR, there is a percentage of our IGF, that is internally generated fund. About 2% of the institute's IGF will be channeled to this fund.
Right.
So it means that the more we stay in business and work with them, any kind of revenue that comes, even into CSIR, 2% of it will be channeled into this Science for Impact Fund.
Okay. So will there be any opportunities for collaboration between the CSIR and academic institutions, private sector companies and all of that through this fund?
Absolutely, because our experience with project management and project development is that greater impact is received when there is wider collaboration.
Right.
So we are moving away from where only research or academia institutions sits in their corner and develop concepts and they implement. We are coming into the place where we have private sector participation, and then we have civil society organizations, advocacy groups,
Yeah.
who would come on board, partner with scientists in CSIR, develop the concepts, even in partnership with these communities that we want to deploy a lot of our CSIR technologies, which we have developed over the years. Link up with the community, find out what their needs are, so the communities themselves will be involved in developing these proposals, so that once it comes on board and it is implemented, ownership is with the community, because the community was involved in the design, involved in the implementation. So at the end of the project, when the funding source has ended, the community will take ownership and there will be sustainability.
Right. So we've already talked about how listeners can get involved. So for aspiring scientists and researchers and all of that, what message do you have for them about the opportunities, involved or provided by the fund?
I would say this is a great opportunity for us all, particularly our young scientists. I trained outside. I trained in the University of Oxford. I came down and I had very limited resources in order to do research. And my first 5 years was a very telling experience. It was torn between going back to the UK where I could do a postdoc and then continue with my research,
Yeah.
or contribute towards the development of my country that has sponsored my education.
Yeah.
It was a tough decision, but then I made a decision that I have to stay.
You have to stay.
And stay and help to build a foundation for early career in younger people. And I'm sure a lot of people have done that. And this is an opportunity for us to cement the good work that we have been doing over the years. So young research scientists, mid-career research scientists, and even research scientists that are at the tail end of their career, like myself, that are about to retire. This is an opportunity for you to use to mentor younger ones in order to take up research that would impact on society. Right. So it is something that we all need to come on board. And it is not only limited to research scientists in the CSIR fraternity, but research scientists in the academic institutions, private sector organizations, civil society, NGOs, community-based organizations. This is our opportunity. Let's contribute to set it up so that we can all benefit in terms of the impact that we would have on the larger society.
Right. So let's go over the short code again. Star 887 *2 hash, right?
Absolutely. Star 887 *2 hash.
Star 887 *2 hash, and you follow. You'll be able to contribute to the CSIR Endowment Fund,
which is the Science for Impact.
Science for Impact.
Yes.
Science for Impact. Is there anything you say finally before we wrap this up? So
my last word to the whole of Ghana is that this is our opportunity. And for Starr FM, we thank you so much for giving science a platform. It's rich to have a morning show just dedicate some of your precious airtime to help in developing or building a scientific culture within our country. And I think Starr FM needs a lot of commendation for the efforts that you have made. I've followed you over several months, and I'm always enriched about the discussions that you've had about science and how it can help in transforming our nation.
Thank you very much.
It is about time that all of us, from the farmer in Zabzugu to the business mongol in Tema, we all look at ways by which we don't shift only the burden of funding research to government. We all contribute our little, ensuring that there is sustainability. Because once we start funding science in the required way that we should do, the benefits will be immeasurable. Because we have been exporting raw materials over the years.
Yes.
And that is the reason why our economic situation is where we are now. Added value comes with science and technology. There is a saying by Zimmerman, an economist, who says resources are not, they become. So our gold, which is in the ground, is not a resource until you have the technology to harness it. And after harnessing it, you refine it. After refining it, you put it into components which are in your PCs and your mobile phones and your electronic gadgets. You see that the value increases astronomically. And that is the way to create wealth within a nation.
Right.
And that is what we are encouraging all Ghanaians, all meaning Ghanaians, to help in setting it up. And let's see how we transform our nation using the power of science and technology.
Definitely, if our nation is going to transform, we can't do away with science and technology. Dr. Uswodro, so grateful that you joined us in the studio this morning.
My pleasure.
It's been great having you from the CSIR. That is the
Council for Scientific and
and Industrial Research. The Council for Scientific,
And-
I was about to say Center for Scientific and Industrial Research.
You know, the difference is that the reason why we are council is that
Yes.
one of our core objectives is also to advise.
Yes.
Advise government and advise our society in terms of science.
so a
and
council.
So we give good counsel.
Good counsel.
So counsel in
Counsel.
science and technology. Yes.
Brilliant stuff. Dr. William Owusu Odro is Deputy Director of the CSIR, the Institute of Industrial Research. He's a Principal Research Scientist joining us this morning on the Morning Star. Once again, it's been a pleasure having you. And we hope that you continue doing the good work that you're doing.
Bless you, and thank you so much for the opportunity.